Mic check, mic check. Mic check, mic check. Hopefully y'all can see me. Sorry for the delay, man. Sorry for the delay. Had some technical difficulties and they're trying to update my computer at the exact wrong time. So I apologize for that. It's your boy Ruff. Y'all know me, man. Coming to you live with another interview, another great interview, man. Hopefully I get a chance to do a few of these with some of the legends in Duval County. Already lining up some other great stuff, man. So without further ado, I'm gonna get my guy on, let him know I'm ready to go. You guys know him, man. You guys been seeing it the last couple of days, man. To me, one of the greatest players of all time ever to come out of the city, man. My great friend, man. My brother, he was in my wedding. Him and his wife are the godparents to my youngest child, man. We talk basketball almost every day. So tonight we're gonna bring to y'all some of the inside scoop, some of the inside information that the conversations on the level of basketball that Toby and I have, that you might not be able to read in the newspaper. It's kind of homeboy to homeboy. So without further ado, my boy, Toby Frazier. Boy, what's going on? You live, baby?
What's up, man?
What's going on, man? What's going on with you?
Not too much, man.
I see you with your upgraded Zoom with your background there, buddy.
I'm at Paxon, man. We at Paxon.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up, man. How life treating you right now, buddy? I mean, just for the people, man. We talk every day, but man, for the people, let everybody know how you doing, man.
I'm doing okay, man. I'm pretty easygoing. Working from home. Just spending a lot of time at home, man. Making sure, just trying to abide by the social distancing rules and trying to be safe.
That's what's up, man. That's all we can do right now, man. Is just try to be safe, man. You just had a wedding anniversary yesterday, right? Happy anniversary again.
3 years, man. Appreciate it.
That's what's up, man. Love that, man. Love that for sure, man. So we're gonna dive right into it, man. We're about 15 minutes late, man. I want to get to everything, man. So right now, man, we want to know, we're gonna start with you as a player, man. We're gonna start from the beginning, man. So what really drove you as a player, man? You reached some levels that at a position that a lot of kids are gonna aspire to reach to, man. So what drove you?
I think the main thing that drove me, I had a lot of good examples. I was really, I guess you could say, like a village kid. Starting with guys like Mark Felton, who was a point guard at Paxon in 1989. And just him being in my neighborhood and him basically teaching me how to play, and knowing, later meeting guys like Ronnie Montgomery and Otis Smith and Calvin Jones, people knowing CJ that played at the Boulevard Park, just meeting those guys. I had local heroes. I didn't have to look at TV to see my heroes, and I just wanted to be good. And then I didn't want to disappoint those guys. So what drove me was, like, I grew up in an era where respect was big. Like, the biggest thing that you could have as a basketball player was respect. Like, they wouldn't let you play at certain parks if you wasn't good enough, or, in our park, you couldn't play on the big boy side unless you was good enough. So it was always a respect thing for me. And I think that's what drove me, to answer your question.
Where you play your park ball at when you was younger?
Primarily in Grant Park, because I'm from Grant Park, but we also play at Woodstock. We play at Joe James. We play at Scott Park, which is close to Cleveland Road. I never made it to the Boulevard. Like, the Boulevard, we'll talk about this stuff later, but the myth was the only high school player that was allowed to play at the Boulevard was James Collins. And the Boulevard is like off of 8th Street, close by Shands Hospital. Back then it was University Hospital. And that's where a lot of guys played at. And the Boulevard was kind of like, you know, it was classified. And I heard, I don't know how true this is, but James was the only high school player that was allowed to play at the Boulevard. I never have an opportunity to play at the Boulevard, but I think it was situations like those, what you know, as a player, we had stuff locally to strive for. Like there were steps that you had to climb locally to get a reputation.
Right. That's what's up, man. So a lot of people don't know now. Everybody, obviously, you know, everybody that's, you know, on the north side of town, Grand Park area, a lot of people know your story, man, but there's some people that actually don't know that you actually played varsity basketball as an 8th grader. So talk about that, man. Talk about your experience playing 5 years of varsity basketball. Probably the only kid that I know of in this. Well, actually, there were some kids at ACD that did it, but you know, one of the, you know, as one of the legends in the city. Talk about your experience, man, being one of the first people to play 5 years of varsity basketball.
You know, it was actually a blessing. Back then, I didn't know what I was doing. Back then, you just playing. You just trying to play. But, you know, I don't know if people know, the school was Southern Baptist Academy. It was on Pearl Street. That turned into Seacoast. That's where Seacoast Christian originated from, Southern Baptist Academy. You had guys like Lonnie Mincy, Carlos Zimmerman, Isaac Wilbur, other guys that I can name that played at Southern Baptist. I can't even remember how I got introduced to that situation. At the time, my mentor was Stanley Cromartie. He was the head coach at EWC. Stanley Cromartie is the father of Dominique Rogers Cromartie, who played in the NFL. He was my mentor, and I remember him introducing me to the coach, a guy named Jim LaPointe at Southern Baptist Academy, and he was like, "Hey, man, the coach gonna let you play. He gonna let you play varsity." And I was like, as an 8th grader, he's like, "He gonna let you play varsity." So he came in and talked to my mom, and you know, next thing you know, I'm at this private school and I'm playing varsity as an 8th grader. And that year I played, I remember we played Ed White. We were a 1A school. We played Ed White. We played Lee, that were considered to be, you know, in a public school. We played Trinity. And I started varsity the whole year. And it was for a confidence boost. Like, it was big. Like, as an 8th grader, to play varsity basketball and actually start and actually have some success. And we had a winning season that year. It just did so much for my confidence. Now, the caveat was, like, going from that point, you can't go from middle school and then go to high school and end up playing JV, or go to a public school and play JV. So, but for my growth and development, like, I could not ask for a better education as an 8th grader to play varsity basketball. I got used to the speed, the size. So just I'm thankful for that coach who found me. I don't know how he found me, but we had a good year together. We actually went up to Kentucky for a Christmas tournament. And that was my first time going that far away from home to play basketball. So all those experiences, man, with that Southern Baptist Academy situation helped me out tremendously.
I'm muted. So we talk all the time, man, about, you know, on basketball, man. And you told me an interesting story, man. Talk to me about, you know, I don't want to use the word recruitment, but talk about your transition from, you know, your private schools, 8th grade varsity, to, you know, deciding whether you're gonna go to public school. How did that go down?
Yeah, you know, I wouldn't necessarily say recruitment, but I think I definitely remember Coach Wilkes from Reebok. And all of this is because my relationship with Coach Cromartie, that was at EWC, he had a relationship with Coach Wilkes. He had a relationship with all the high school coaches, with him being a local college coach. But I remember the last conversation I had with the coach was Coach Wilkes from Reebok, and he was telling my mom about a aviation magnet program that they had, and he was like, "Look, you know, you need to hurry up and make a decision. Summer league is about to start." And as a kid, I didn't know how to voice this, but I was going to Paxon. Like, that was the neighborhood school. My family went to Paxon. All the guys in the neighborhood went to Paxon. I was just waiting for Paxson to get a coach. Now, me being naive, I didn't care who that guy was. I didn't care who he was going to be, where he was from. I was just waiting for Paxson to get a coach. And then I think maybe like 2 or 3 days later, after talking to Coach Wilkes on the phone about coming to Reball, and I actually had a conversation with Lavernius Coles after AAU practice that spring, and he was trying to tell me about the defenses and what's this called and what offense is this. And I'm kind of in the back seat like, yeah, man, whatever. I'm going to Paxson. And Coach Tony Watson was hired as the basketball coach at Paxson, and I didn't know him from Adam. I just remember Cormati calling. He said, hey, the guy that got the job at Paxson is a good guy. I know him. You know, you'll be in good hands. And then we connected, and the very next day, this guy pulls up in this gray Jetta, and he's Tony Watson, and we go to the park, and we play one-on-one full court. And, you know, from that point on, I became a Paxson Eagle.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up. So we'll talk a little bit about your transition then to college. You got a pretty interesting story about how you were recruited, and then your transition on to your schools that you played at.
Yeah, my high school, my college situation is actually what I feel like pushed me towards coaching, because I didn't want other kids to fall into the situation that I fell into. I was the kid in high school. I was a good kid. I wasn't going to cause you any problem. I just didn't want to do any schoolwork to the best of my ability. I pretty much did as much as I can do in order just for me to be eligible and just for me to play. I never maxed out academically. And because of that, I ended up not qualifying academically. I had offers from Florida State, Wake Forest, Alabama, and I couldn't take any of them because I didn't have a test score that corresponded with my GPA. And I ended up going to Georgia Southern because they were the only school that was willing to prop me. So the Prop 48, because they had something called Proposition 48 back then. I don't know if they still have it, but you can enroll in a 4-year, but you can't play. You have to sit out your whole year, and you lose that year. It's not like a red shirt. You actually lose that year of eligibility. And I end up at Georgia Southern, and the transition from, you know, even then it wasn't tough, but what surprised me was I was under the impression, you know, Georgia Southern was still a Division I program. I was under the impression that all guys that played Division I basketball worked a certain way. And I remember the first night being on campus that night, I asked a couple guys, I was like, look, do y'all want to go running? And they kind of looked at me, and they were guys that are already in the program. They looked at me and they laughed. And I'm like, y'all don't want to go running? And they're like, nah, man, we don't have enough time to run for conditioning. And where I came from, high school, the coach that I had, like, that's what you do. Like, you run on your own. So it shocked me that guys on that level didn't necessarily do stuff on their own. So I was a little naive about guys in college and how they worked. And then as I started getting older, I started realizing this is why certain guys don't play. This is why certain guys don't get in the game. And you would have guys in college that would tell you, like, look, man, I just want to get my degree. Like, I don't really want to go to the NBA. I don't want to go overseas. I just want to get my degree. I'm going to do enough just so they don't kick me off the team, and I'm going to get my free education, which is not a bad thing. But as you know, where I come from, it's like, it's all about playing time. It's all about trying to prove yourself. It's all about trying to be productive. So I feel like my high school situation from a basketball standpoint, it prepared me for college, especially that first year, just because I still, even though I wasn't playing, I still had to go through weights and, you know, early morning runs and stuff like that. So
what I would tell you, man, is in when you say naive, you was naive about, you know, not knowing who your high school coaches were going to be when you choosing Paxson, and you was naive about the work ethic that kids had when you went to college, man. That was to me, it wasn't naivety. It was just you having a love for the game, that it didn't matter who you played for or who you were around. You know, you was going to give the game your all, man. And that's something that, you know, kids and coaches and people need to really hear and understand, man, that when you have a certain love for the game, man, it don't matter. It don't matter where you at. You bringing that love with you and that work ethic with you, man. So that's awesome, man. Next question, man. In high school, who are the toughest players that you feel like you played against?
We talking just high school, or we talking AAU?
Give me whatever. Give me locally since we on for the Ville.
Locally, the first guy for me is Dorsett Watson. You know, you hear guys talk about a rabbit, guys that you chase. That was the guy that I was chasing.
Mm-hmm.
And he was a guy that he went to Stanton, and at the time Stanton wasn't a basketball school. He gave me peace about going to Paxon because at the time Paxon wasn't really known for. I think we were known for having a real good band. But the fact that Dorsett was at Stanton and he was a trendsetter. He was the first high school guard that in my era, that was posting guys up. He was the first point guard in my era that was bragging about leading the team in rebounds. So Dorsett is the first guy that comes to mind for me as far as competition. If you're going to play against him, like, you got to come with it. What's interesting is I got to be on both sides of that. Like, I was chasing Dorsett, and then I remember being a junior and a senior, and I remember Marcus Washington. Like, he had a grudge. Like, I just loved that about him. Like, he had an edge and he had a grudge about himself, to where if you were supposed to be good and like people were saying I was good, like, Marcus was coming at me just because people were saying that I was good. And I think he found out that I was good, but it didn't stop him from coming. And I always respected that about him. But from a point guard position, those two guys, now it's a guy, I call this guy's name, and I don't know, and I'm gonna probably do a lot of name dropping tonight, but Antonio McNair, and people in the neighborhood know him as Yonk. He played at Reigns. He was a guy that was ahead of his time. Like, anybody that knows Antonio McNair, or we call him Yonk, anybody that knows him, he was ahead of his time. He was shooting the three deep. He had the hesitation game. He was tough. He could defend the ball. Guys that gave me problems, two guys that gave me problems. When I say gave me problems, defended me well. Mike Bush from Reigns and Travis Taylor that played at Reebok. They were physically strong, and they were just tough guys. Mike Bush is one of the most underrated guys that we have in Jacksonville. Travis Taylor, being a football guy, he was athletic, and I thought it was genius, Coach Wilkes, letting Travis guard me just because his length, and he was strong and he was agile. Those two guys, Mike Bush and Travis, they probably won't come up in a lot of conversation, but for me, those are two guys that gave me a lot of problems.
That's what's up, man. I want to go back to just give you a little bit of insight on Marcus. Marcus played. Obviously, Marcus was, a lot of people know. You know, some people don't. Marcus was my point guard my senior year in high school. He was a freshman, and we would always, when we brought up your name, you know, Marcus would get really agitated about, you know, when we brought up the fact that, we got to play against old Toby Frazier tonight, or, Toby Frazier, the best point guard in the city. Marcus would get absolutely, positively pissed off. And that's probably why a lot of times you got your best game out of him, because one of the things that we did just to kind of, play with him psychologically is just to bring you up, because we knew it agitated him. But when you talk to Marcus now, he got nothing but love, nothing but respect for, your game and where you should be mentioned at amongst the greats, for sure, man. So I want to, before we get to the next question too, man, I was checking out the Facebook Live, man. I saw Coach Battle on, a legend, long-time coach in the city, man. Respect to Coach Battle. And it prompted me something that I didn't think to ask you, man, is about coaches who inspired you as a player, or coaches that you look forward to playing against, or you knew you was gonna get a tough one out, somebody who was gonna scheme up on you, and you knew you had to be prepared to play.
Speaking of Coach Battle, Coach Battle was there from the beginning. Like, back in the day, you played for the Doctors. Like, you started off playing for the Jacksonville Doctors, and Coach Battle was one of those guys that was always around, him and Coach Murray and Coach Gamble. I remember Coach Battle, to show you how much things have changed. Coach Battle took me to team camp with Stanton, to FSU team camp, just because it's like you play 11 games in 2 days or 1 day or whatever the case may be, and they need an extra body. And he just asked me, did I want to go? And he took me, and I played at team camp with Stanton, and it was more so about just getting kids opportunities back then, and it wasn't necessarily about recruiting or poaching people's players or whatever the case may be. It was like, hey, we're going out of town. I think he could play. I think he could help us. But more so, it wasn't about helping Stanton. It was about giving me an opportunity to play in front of the coaches at Florida State. Coach Battle is one of those guys where one thing I learned from him is about doing your homework. Like over the years, you always see Coach Battle coming to scout. He got his tablet, he got his pad, and he's coming to scout. He's going to be prepared. He's going to make sure that he knows everything that you're doing, and so he can have his guys prepared. Coach Wilkes was a guy, you gotta love Coach Wilkes. Like, you gotta love him. Like, he just, his success is impeccable. The young man's life that he impacted, the swagger that he brought to Jacksonville. I think Reebok were the first with black uniforms that wasn't a primary color. The whole warm-up that they had coming out with the cheerleaders. Like, even if you hated Reebok, you had to admire them because of, just what they brought. And one guy that I get to my guy last, but Coach Roten, Coach Bob Roten, probably one of the most underrated coaches in Jacksonville. I get it, because if you don't know him, or if you hadn't had an opportunity to play under him, you don't really know. But I had an opportunity to play for him when we took the team to France.
Right.
And he's just absolute genius. Like, he's just a genius. Like, he has a perfect balance of player-coach relationship. He has the X's and O's down. He's not too hard. He's not too soft. He's very thorough, very organized. So Coach Roten is a guy that was very impactful for me. And last but not least, well, I wouldn't say that. My AAU coaches, Ronnie Weston and Martin Jackson, those were two guys that I felt like shaped my toughness and shaped my intellect. Coach Jackson was very smart. He was always asked questions. He always wanted to know what you saw, what were you thinking. Coach Ronnie was in your face, tough. He'll cuss you out. He'll call you out your name. All that stuff. But it was all for us to win. And last but not least is my head high school coach, Tony Watson.
T-Watt.
And we still talk to this day. Like, I get a text from him every morning, me and along with some of the other guys. He just taught me how to work. It was no excuses for anything. We just worked. Like, we ran, we got shots up. You work on your game. You want to get better. You compete. He was just a no nonsense, no excuse type of guy. And I really credit him with any success that I've had as a basketball player, because that's my foundation. So all of those guys that I just named, for me as a player and some stuff as a coach, have been instrumental for me.
That's what's up, man. That's what's up, man. All those guys, definitely. I competed against some of those guys, all of those guys, actually, especially high school guys. Coach Battle, Coach Wilkes. Obviously, I played for Coach Roten, and T-Watt always, brought his team prepared, man. I was hesitant to kind of bring up, y'all beat us my senior year. Y'all wasn't supposed to beat us. You wasn't supposed to beat us. We was coming off a trip to Tennessee, Christmas tournament. We one of the mistakes Coach Bob Roden made is, I think before the game we might have practiced the day before about an hour, maybe 45 minutes, because we had just come off a long road trip from Tennessee. And I don't know if he felt like, we can handle Paxon, it wouldn't be no problem, man. And y'all came in the gym and beat us by 15 points. And funny story, we'll talk about him a little bit later, man. But I called myself trying to match Arian Atkinson from three for three. And I think he came down and hit one, and I came down and I hit one. And he hit another one, I hit another one. That was about it for me. He went on to hit about 4 or 5 more. So, that's good stuff, man. So we kind of went over the pattern stuff, man, and the coaches. So let's get into one word association if you can, man. You know, we talked about this. You know, if you can stay one word, cool. If you can't, you know, go in, man, and just talk about it, man. But just between you and I, man, you know what I think about you as a player, man. When you played against me, when you was matching up against me, or when you saw me on film, man, what was your thoughts?
The word for you, I would say gritty. I thought you was gritty. You do whatever it takes to win. You brought something to that team that nobody else brought. You could rebound it, you could shoot it, you could defend, you put on the floor, you finish above the rim. It's, I guess you could say like the Draymond Green. You was the Draymond Green of y'all team.
Without the technical fouls and cheat.
Right. Yeah. So I thought you was, I would say gritty for you.
Appreciate it, man. I appreciate it, man. Next player. We just talked about him, Aaron Atkinson.
Special. He's special. We talk a lot over the years, and I don't know, like, I don't know if I am who I am without him. Like, if I don't have him, I'm probably not able to do what I do best if I don't have him. I think if he's not there and I'm able to just facilitate and just get him shots, and a guy actually make them, it's the difference between getting the guy shots and getting the guy shots who can make them. I don't know if I am who I am. He's just special, man. Like, he was special. I'll tell you a funny story about him. As good as he did shoot the ball, I'm not going to say as good as people thought, because he could shoot it.
Absolutely.
When we would be in practice, and he's probably going to be embarrassed that I say this if he's watching, when we would be in practice doing shooting drills, when coach would turn his back, he would just hold the ball. Like, he would just stop getting shots up. And I thought that was the craziest thing for a guy who could shoot. And I just would look at him, and I'm like, why wouldn't this guy want to shoot the ball? And at the time, because of who he was, like, I saw him as a peer. And when I say a peer, I saw him as an equal in the sense of we were in the same grade. He understood the importance of getting shots up. He understood all that stuff. So I'm not finna be getting on him about not getting shots up. If he want to hold the ball, man, hold the ball. If you want to hold the ball, I could care less. But it just would baffle me, that he, would hold the ball as good as he could shoot it. But, he could shoot it. Another funny story about him, I remember being at the Gateway Conference banquet as a 12th grader. And Coach Wilkes, because Reebok won the conference, the coach of the winning team, introduces all the players. And Coach Wilkes introduced Aaron as this. The last 2 years, we have played against this kid 6 times. Each time we played against him, he scored 30-plus points. So 11th grade to 12th grade, we played Reebok 6 times. He scored 30-plus all 6 games.
That's crazy. That's crazy, man. Shout out to Arian, man. I believe I did see him jump on, man. Arian down here with me in Tampa, man. So doing great stuff. Next player, man. We get into some of these legends, man. Andre Cooper, Fletcher's own, Beach's own.
Fun. Dre was fun. Like, he was fun. Like, you gotta love, like, just watching Dre play. Like, he just was fun. Like watching him, he just made the game fun. Like, he smiled a lot. He just, like, he enjoyed what he was doing. Like,
yeah,
he just enjoyed it. Like, so my word for him would be fun.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. We get into one of the Mr. Basketballs, Eastside Zone, James Collins.
James is different, man. You can take that how you want to take it. Like, and my relationship with James is different than a lot of people. Like, I got to see James at every state except for middle school. Okay, so I put James in context for some people who watching, and you have a lot of people who have this debate about who's the best player and all this stuff. I put it in context for you. James had a press conference to announce where he was going to high school when he was in middle school. Okay.
Back in early 90s.
Right. So he chooses to go to Jackson, right?
Yeah.
His first varsity game, he scores 50 points. His first varsity game. Okay. The next thing I'll say about James is this. When people, and don't get me wrong, I'm not trying to discredit anybody's achievement. I'm not trying to discredit anything anybody's done. But James held a scoring title for years. I think Myron broke James' scoring title. Okay, not take nothing from Myron. I love Myron. We all cool. But when James was in high school, in Duval County, high school was 10th grade through 12th grade. Back then, they didn't have middle schools. They had junior high, and they had 6th grade centers. Mm-hmm. So you had schools where all 6th grade, then you had junior high. Junior high was 7th, 8th, and 9th. Okay, you don't go to high school until you get to 10th grade. James had the scoring record. The people that broke James' scoring record had 4 years to break a record that he achieved in 3 years.
Yeah.
So you're talking like 25 more games.
Mm-hmm.
You give James those 25 more games, he probably score another 700 points.
It's logical.
So he was different. Like, he was just different from top to bottom. I saw him. I remember being 11 years old. He played on the 18-year-old team. Coop was on that team. I was on the PAL team playing like 12 and under or something like that, I think, 11, whatever the PAL was at that time. And they won the national. And I remember watching them then, and then watching him through high school, and then watching him in college and working out with him a little bit in college. And then when he was going through his pre-draft, James would come pick me up every morning, and we would work out. We would work out at the PAL at like 8 o'clock in the morning. We'd go lift weights at the Y. We'll go eat lunch, chill out or something like that, and then we'll find somewhere to play pickup. So I saw him at all phases, and so it's just different. Like, the way he worked, the way he played, he's just different than me.
Good stuff, man. And then you brought him up, so give us an association with Myron.
Transcendent. Myron was for people that don't know, when you watch a KD, when you watch a Zach Randolph, when you watch a Marcus Morris, or Markeith Morris, or any guy right now that you say is kind of like inside out for us, Myron was that guy that did that on an efficient level. And I have an appreciation for Myron because I saw Myron in the 8th grade. And I remember saying this about Myron in 8th grade. He couldn't walk and chew bubblegum. He could not walk and chew bubblegum. And when I saw him in the 9th grade, I could not believe who he had become in just like one summer. And he worked his butt off. Mm-hmm. And for us, in Jacksonville, we hadn't had a kid that was inside, outside like that. And he could really pass the ball. I found out when we went to France, Myron could really see the floor. Like, I didn't know he could see the floor like that until we went to France. So to me, he was kind of like transcending. Like, he kind of changed that whole thing about you being 6'5", 6'6", you got to play in the post, and
right,
you got to be relegated to the post. I think he really, really helped our city out by showing that if you work on your skills, it makes sense sometimes to have that kid that's 6'6", that 6'7", play on the perimeter. So I think he was transcending for us.
The really cool thing about, and I played with Myron, the really cool thing about playing with Myron and then having Coach Roden as his coach, Coach Roden kind of taught me as a player, and me getting into my coaching career, is how to let great players be great. And Myron's basketball IQ was through the roof. He knew when to go down to the block, and he needed to get 2. And he knew when it was time for him to be on the perimeter shooting the 3 from the outside. It wasn't you never heard Coach Roden yell at Myron, "Get back inside," or
right,
running anything specific for him to get a 3. It was Myron kind of playing the game as it should have been played. So that was huge, man. So and then last, we'll move on to your coaching career, man. But just go a little bit further in depth about T. Watt for us.
He's just a different type of dude, man. Like, I remember he would pick me up for school every day. I think ninth grade, he would pick me up every day. So I remember one week his car broke down, and T. Watt stayed off University Boulevard. And everybody know about Jacksonville, to get to any side of town, you got to cross a bridge. Mm-hmm. So his car broke down. So I was like, I'll make other ways. I'll get somebody to drop me off, whatever the case may be. T. Watt rode his bicycle every day that week across the bridge. He would have like his work clothes in a bag across the shoulder. And he just was like, he was a fanatic about like working out, basketball. Like he would create intramural leagues after the season was over for just regular students. He was a PE teacher during his planning period. He's running around the track. Like, he just was a fanatic about working out, he would read Sports Illustrated every time he's working in the weight room, and he just loves sports. And like, to be around him, like, if you didn't love basketball, like, he would irritate you. Like, he would completely irritate you. And I leave him responsible for, I wouldn't say my love for basketball, because I loved it, but as far as like how you treat it, like, he's responsible for like how I treat the game. Like, he's like, man, you don't do this, you don't do that, you work on your own. And it's just like that's probably the biggest thing, the independent working. Like, he would work with us, but the biggest, like, he would call you and be like, what did you do today? Did you go to the park today? Did you get some shots up today? Did you go running today? Like, it was with him, it was always about what did you do on your own. So that level of independency, I hold him responsible for. He's just a special coach in that regard, man. Like, it's evident. We still talk today. Last game I played for him was like 1997. Last time I talked to him was like Saturday.
Right.
20 plus years later,
right,
we're still talking. So
that's good stuff, man. You gotta love it. Absolutely gotta love that, man. So let's get into your coaching career, man. When did you know you wanted to be a coach? And some of this stuff, man, I'm finding out. We talk all the time, man, and some of this stuff we never really talked about. So
yeah, I'll tell you everything. I don't know, man. I remember when I transferred to the junior college, when I left Georgia Southern, and I went to junior college in Texas, I would get on my teammates about certain stuff. So sarcastically, some guys would be like, here come Coach Tobe, here come Coach Toby, here come Coach, and it was sarcasm because they were saying I'm trying to be like the coach or whatever. But really, I was just getting on them for not doing the right stuff. And it wasn't until I came back home, and when I came back home to play at JU, and after I was done playing at JU, I got called coach there a couple of times too by my teammates. And I just said I wanted to help, so what I started doing was I started going around to different high schools, introducing myself to coaches. And I just like, Coach, can I talk to your team? And Coach Battle was one of the first guys that let me come in and talk to his guys. I remember Dale Green was at Forest. He let me come in and talk to some of his guys. And I just wanted to give back because I felt like I was a village kid. I had guys like Mike Hackett, Danny Pearson, Tennessee, Anthony Mosley, Steve Tutson, all these older guys, Kip Stone, JC, all these other guys that I talked to that helped raise me. And I was like, you know what? I feel like I owe a debt to give back to some kids. So I just started reaching back out to the community, and that led to me trying to help kids. And then that led me going to their games. And then when I started going to the games, I was like, you know what? I need to be on their staff.
Yeah.
Because I can help them even more. So then I started seeking out coaching opportunities because I was like, you know what? I probably need to jump on and help. But ironically, man, like, my first job was with Coach Buster Harvey, who recently passed. God bless Coach Harvey. Was with him at EWC. And what's crazy, this is what's crazy. Coach Ben Jones, who's the head coach at Impact, was on that EWC team, and David Graham, who's the assistant coach at Wilberforce, he was on that team. And then Ronaldo Horn, Ronaldo Norman, who's the brother of Josh Norman, the cornerback in the NFL, he was on that team that I coached at EWC. So it's just crazy how years later, life goes on and we all still connected some type of way.
Right.
But that's to answer your question. Like, that's how I didn't know I wanted to coach. I didn't know if I wanted to coach. I still don't know if I wanted to coach, but that's how I got to coaching.
Yeah. So, it's always been my thought process, man, that great players don't make great coaches.
Right.
I feel like players that were either not very good players or, players that were average players like myself makes the better coaches. But great players typically don't make great coaches. So you've had a lot of success at Paxon, man. What do you think is different about you being a player that had, a lot of accolades, highly recruited, played on the D1 level? Talk about where you think the separation is there. And there's some few exceptions to the rules. People like James Collins, great player, great coach, great success at the same time. But for yourself, talk about how you think you're different from that.
I think one of the things I did, and I haven't always been like this, but you have to meet the kids where they're at. Like, I tell guys, young coaches, guys that's getting into coaching, you're going to coach guys that you played with and guys that you played against more than you're going to coach yourself. So I never expected my kids that I coach to love the game the way I love the game. I think that's unrealistic. So you meet kids where they are. Like, some kids are going to like it. Every now and then you'll get a kid that loves it and that's what he wants to do. And that's all he wants to do. And he'll listen to whatever you tell him. But for the most part, you got to kind of get a feel for where that kid is about the game. And if that's not what they really want to do, that's fine. Like, kids can be good high school basketball players, but not want to play on the college level. So what I try to, do since I've been at Paxon, I've tried to meet kids where they are. And then I try to see how can we meet in the middle to do what's best for Paxon. So I don't expect a kid to be able to do what I did. I don't expect for them to care like I cared. I think what happens is, as coaches and as adults, we see potential in the kid. And we like, man, if you just do this, you could be this. And if you just took it a little bit more serious, that's not what the kid wants to do. Like, the kids talk nonverbal to us all the time. We just don't listen.
Right.
So you can have a kid with all the potential, but every day after practice is over, the kid is the first one out the gym. Like, you can ask him to stay, but if you got to ask him to stay, he kind of like telling you that's not what he really wants to do. Now, if that kid did everything you asked him to do in practice, he bust his tail in practice, he won every sprint, or he ran every sprint hard, he run the plays right, he's committed to the team, he shows up every day, then that kind of like has to be the expectation. Like, I don't think our expectation as coaches can exceed what the kids want to do. I think we can continue to push them and try to mold them, but as time goes on, it's just not for everybody. And I think what I have tried to do, especially with my kids at Paxon, kids that come to Paxon, with it being at the academic institution that it is, kids don't come there for basketball. Like, basketball is good at Paxon, but kids don't come there for basketball. Kids come to Paxon because they're trying to get a certain kind of education.
Right.
The guy that's the coach just happens to love basketball. That doesn't mean that all of those kids are going to love basketball. So I just kind of meet them. I meet them where they are, and I try to get the most out of them.
That's what's up, man. So we want to give a shout out to we topped out at like 55 people, man, joining in on the live, man. Shout out for everybody tuning in, man. Showing you a lot of love on Facebook right now, man. So we definitely appreciate that. So when you coaching, how do you feel about adjustments? Just for the coaches out there, when you coming into a game, do you feel more so that you need to come into the game adjusting for your opponent, or do you come in with the idea that you're going to make your opponent adjust to you? How do you approach that?
We won't always be us. Like I think you have to be yourself. Like I think it will send mixed messages to your kids if we practice this way all the time and then we get to a game and we try to deviate from that. So I think especially when you're dealing with kids, I think consistency is important. We're always going to be us until you show us that us is not suffice. And then if it's not suffice, then we'll adjust from there. But you don't, I feel like it confuses your kids when you're preaching something Monday through Wednesday, and then you get to the game Thursday, and because the team scores a couple buckets or, a kid does something that you didn't expect, you kind of deviate from what the game plan was. And I think for me, it's twofold. Like, I try to dual coach my kids. Like it's life and basketball simultaneously. So I tell my guys, like, if you want to talk to a girl, you can't go talking, impersonating somebody else. You got to be you. Like, that's who she gonna end up talking to. So
Right.
You don't want to go being phony. You don't want to go being shy. Like, hey, this is who I am. And if that don't work, then we'll adjust from there. If you buy chocolate, she don't like chocolate, then the next day you come with some airheads or something like that. Like we're gonna be us. I'm gonna be me first, and then from that point on, we'll deviate from the game plan. But most of the time, and I think that's how you want to lose. If you're gonna lose doing what you do. Don't lose experimenting.
Right. One of our funniest experiences together, man. I think it was our first or second year coaching together at Bowles, and I was the head JV coach. And we was playing in the Christmas tournament, man. I don't know if you remember this, at Mandarin, and we was playing against Jackson. And Jackson had us, and they had the diamond press going on. And you tapped me on the shoulder. You was assisting me. You tapped me on the shoulder. You say, "Hey, man, call timeout." So I called timeout. And they pressing us, and typically when you try to break a press, people don't know, team extending their defense full court. You want to try to have as many people back there as possible helping you break the press. You want to have, a trail man. You want to have somebody. You want to have two outlets on the wing, somebody in the middle, and maybe somebody long. So you pulled me to the side before we talked to the kids, and you was like, "Hey, man, put two people deep." So I'm looking at you like you crazy. I'm like, why am I going to take, four of my five guys or one of my four guys that's helping me in the backcourt and put him away from all the pressure? And you was like, "Man, just trust me, just do it." So, we go back in, I tell the kid, put two people deep. And lo and behold, the back guy in the diamond of the press, he goes back deep with the other guy. So we got the middle of the floor wide open. Once we hit the middle, it's then 3-on-2 going the other way. And two possessions later, they come out the press, same press us the rest of the game. We end up winning. And we just used to do stuff like that all the time, man, when we was together, especially from your perspective. One of the things I respect about your coaching style is that when stuff don't work, when you do adjust, it's something that's going to be something that nobody's seen, because and understand, this is something I learned from you, is that basketball is universal. So if the kids are being taught the same thing your kids are being taught. So they're going to expect a rotation, especially on the defensive side, to happen a certain way. So you have to learn how to go the opposite direction. You even shared some plays with me recently where help side, far help side, 3 passes away, going to be on the basket line, running underneath the basket. So you run plays to take advantage of that kind of stuff, man. So it's an art to it, man, and you definitely one of the people that put in the work and study and just come up with ways to be different in the way you scheme things, man. I think that's why you've been so successful lately. Tell us what you think about the climate of basketball. Go ahead.
No, I was just to piggyback on what you said. I think the key from a coaching standpoint is you try to get your opponent to do stuff that they didn't practice. So I know if a guy if they run in a diamond press, chances are they setting up the press break in practice for the press to be successful if they're working on the press. So I'm not going to let my kid stand probably where you putting your kid standing at. So in practice, that kid is used to somebody being in the middle. I'm going to take that kid and put him on the sideline just to see what, So you talk about dealing with kids, you put them in a position, and I'm talking about the opponent, to do something that they haven't practiced. And most of the time, the results are in your favor, and you get teenagers to do something they hadn't seen all week.
That makes a whole lot of sense, man. That makes a whole lot of sense. Let's see what we got next, man. I'm hoping our special guest can join us soon, man. What do you think about the climate of basketball as it pertains to players and coaches today?
Like, it's in general, Jacksonville, just or what?
Let's do, like I said, we talking to the Ville, man. We talking to the city, man. So you give your impressions of what you think, about climate of basketball in the city. We're getting real Toby Frazier, man, not, Channel 12 News.
I think it's, to be honest with you, man, I think it's good. Like, I think Jacksonville basketball is good. I think what happens, Jacksonville is a tough city. And, we're hard on each other. And I think we don't realize how good our basketball is. We see each other all the time. So it's the old cliche, familiarity breeds contempt. You see guys all the time. You see coaches all the time. And you become numb to the stuff that they're doing. So we start gravitating towards the out-of-town stuff, the out-of-town team. So if you take a year ago, I'm just giving a scenario. If you take 2 years ago, you got Paxon in the Final Four, you got University Christian in the Final Four, you got I think you got NFEI in the Final Four, you got Jackson in the Final Four, you got Fleming Island in the Final Four. Okay. Now, the summer prior to that season, you probably had a lot of Jacksonville teams saying, we need to go to team camp out of town to play against some stiff competition. And then at the end of that season, 5 of your teams in your area go to the Final Four. Okay? So this is giving you an idea of the thought process. Like, we have enough here. We have enough competition here to satisfy the competition itch, if that's what you're trying to get, because we're putting teams in the Final Four. We got teams competing on the state level year after year. I think it's because we see each other all the time that we don't want to give each other credit, and I don't know if it's a competition thing or whatever the case may be, but the last couple of years with Paxon, we traveled a lot. Like, we travel up and down the state. We played teams from Alabama. We play teams from Georgia. We play teams from down south. We play teams from Tampa. And we won by 25. We won by 20. We won by 30. So the whole idea, like, going out of town, it's not like we are good, and we have been traditionally good. I think it was back in 92, maybe, the year that Jackson won the state. I think Fletcher went to the Final Four. Bowles went to the Final Four. And I think maybe Bishop Kennedy, somebody else went to the Final Four. We had like 4 or 5 teams in the Final Four back in 92. So in Jacksonville, historically, our basketball has been good. I think what happens is, I think just with anything else is trendy. Like, at certain times, certain schools are trendy, or certain situations are trendy. And I don't necessarily think that that's a bad thing, but I think as a whole, just with me being a part of it, and when I see some of these teams from out of town, sometimes you go to a tournament or you go to a camp and you spend money to go out of town and you win the game by like 30 points. And you're like, man, you know what? We could have stayed home and played Jackson. if we wanted to get a tough game, if we wanted to play against some athleticism. You know, we could have played Bishop Kenny if we wanted to play against some dynamic offense. So we could have played Episcopal if we wanted some dynamic offense. So we could have played Providence if we wanted to play against some size. Like, I think we underestimate ourselves as a city. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit from the players to the coaches. Like, it's good coaches in Jacksonville, it's good players, and it's historically it's been like that. I think we see each other all the time, so we become numb to each other.
Right. That's a good take, man. That's a good take, man. City is definitely always representing the last couple of years. City's been representing good down the road, man, with tough teams, great coaching, man, and I think it's only gonna get better. You know, the schools that are making it, that's made it the last 2 years in a row, are definitely probably offering some inspiration to those other schools that are right there on the edge. You know, there's a couple of schools that are right there on the edge that's gonna return some talented players that can do some special things, man. So good stuff, man. Good stuff. So talk about parent and coaching relationships on the high school level.
You know, the parent coach situation on high school, I think it varies from school to school. I think that you know, rightfully so. I think every parent wants what's best for their child. I think in my personal opinion, I think what has happened with sports, which, you know, you could say what you want to say about it, whether you don't like it or whatever the case may be. I think the expectation of coaches have superseded like any other position. Like, you know, you got situations where, and I'm not necessarily talking about my situation per se, but I've been coaching for a while. I've been at a bunch of schools. And it's like the criticism that may come towards a coach is not the same criticism that the English teacher may get. It's not the same criticism that the band director may get. It's not the same criticism that the guidance counselor may get. You know, and maybe it's because, you know, when you're at a game, it's live and that's when it happens. But I think that, you know, from a relationship standpoint, I think, you know, if anything, I would want parents to understand it as coaches. Like, I don't think there's no coach anywhere that would just outright mislead a kid or mistreat a kid. I think mistakes happen. I think, you know, miswords are said sometimes. But I think at the end of the day, most coaches want their kids to be successful because you're the coach. Like, you're responsible. But I just think that you know, when those relationships are good, I think it's better for the kid, because a lot of times the kids may love their coach, and then the parents may not like the coach so much, and then when stuff is said or it conflicts the relationship with the kid and the coach. You know, and we talk about dealing with kids. Sometimes a kid doesn't know how to handle those instances. But I just think that, you know, parents and coaches join hands and like just to raise the kids. Like, you know, the common goal should be, we want the kid to be successful, whether it be through sports, basketball, or academics, whatever the case may be. But I know my personal take on it. You know, what I've noticed since I've been coaching, like you hear comments sometimes, and it's like, you know, sometimes you wonder, like, do we expect this from the English teacher? Are we checking lesson plans to make sure that we on pace? You know, are we supposed to be on chapter 6? You know, are we sure that we on chapter 6, even though, you know? So it's just those things that, you know, as a coach, sometimes you wonder, you just want to keep things prioritized. And, you know, I would say, you know, at Paxon, I've been blessed with great parents, supportive parents. And I think it shows in some of the success that we've had. You know, as a coach, you feel empowered when you have the backing of your parents and they support you and they support the program and they support the kids. I think it could be a wonderful situation when that support is there.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. Good stuff. Good stuff. It's funny, you get a kid that might get a bad grade in his English class, and mama, papa will jump all over the kid about his assignment. But if the kid go 2 for 20 in a basketball game, coach fault. Coach don't know what he's doing. So next question, man. Just get into Paxon basketball a little bit, man. How, if at all, man, are you communicating with your players right now?
We had a Zoom call, and I kind of gauged my kids. My kids are a little different. We had a Zoom call probably about 3 weeks ago, and a few of them, I wouldn't say they was irritated at the call, but a few of them was kind of like, God dang, cool, what you want, man? We good. Like, what you gonna do? Like, you ain't got no cure. Like, you can't get us out the house. So I kind of took that as, everybody's fine from a face check standpoint. But we text. We have a text group, and I text, and we make sure academically everybody's trying to stay strong and finish strong, and just checking on the family and the well-being. And I actually had to check myself because I started feeling a little strange, but I had to tell myself, like, this time of year your kids would have been playing AAU anyway, so this was like my little break time anyway in normal situations where they would be on the road traveling or AAU practice or whatever the case may be, so they wouldn't necessarily be with me. But to answer your question, we'll text frequently. I text a group every now and then. I text guys on the side personally, asking about some one-off stuff that I know that they have going on, or I send some film out, or just ask them about different stuff. So, but everybody's good.
Yeah, good stuff, man. You had 2 years in a row where you hit the Final Four. Came up a little bit short, man, but still a great accomplishment. Regional championships, district championships back to back. Defeating some tough competition down the road, playing against some great players, great coaches, man. Expectations coming up for next season. We know you losing, 2-time class player of the year, Mr. Basketball, amongst a couple of other talented youngsters. What are your expectations going into next year? You think you can make it back?
I'm gonna ask you this question. I asked to a college coach yesterday. He asked me a similar question. What would you say if I told you I went to the Final Four, and the following year, off that Final Four team, I had 3 starters coming back, and I had 8 players off that whole team coming back? What would you say? I went to the Final Four, 3 starters off that team coming back, 8 guys total.
I would say I like your chances.
Okay, so that's what we have coming back. Like, we have 3 starters coming back, and out of 12 guys, we had 8 seats, so we got 7 guys coming back. And I feel good, man. Like, it's a veteran group. So out of the guys that's coming back, 3 of the starters, then you got 2 other guys that have played heavy minutes that have been to 2 Final Fours. So the experience is there. The obvious loss is Isaiah, and a lot of people want to talk about losing him, and that is losing a lot. But everybody's had attrition too. We're not the only ones that had attrition. But like I said, this group of guys have been the core of it. We lose a lot with losing Mike Caswell, losing Derek Johnson, Jadarius Kennedy, Josue Rivera. Like, we lose a lot with those guys. But, I feel good with the group that's coming back, and we're just going to work. We're going to continue to work, and we have a 6'7", Nari Jordan that's been hitting, that didn't play that much last year. So we'll get some of that size back that Isaiah brought. Nari's different than Isaiah. He's more of a screen roll type guy, rim runner, good at running the floor, boxing out. So I think it'll be different because we won't have the target anymore. and we'll have a chip on our shoulder. But I expect for us to be good, man. I think we can make it back.
Good stuff, man. Good stuff. And we'll get in a little bit more about Isaiah a little later, man. As we transition over into the last section of our interview, man, we're going to talk about legends and GOATs, man. Legends and GOATs, that conversation has been going on across basketball, man. When you start talking about pro basketball and college basketball, and then obviously the conversation has gotten heavy with who's the greatest basketball player in Jacksonville history, so we'll start at the top. We'll start with Michael Jordan and LeBron, or if you have anybody else, who would you say, if you could pick one of those guys, who would you say to you is the GOAT and why?
For me, it's Mike. And the reason why I say Mike is because he set the mold. And it's hard to be the first one to do anything. And, people are going to like who they like. I'm not, the younger generation, they kind of like gravitate towards LeBron because they didn't see Mike like we saw Mike. Like I told somebody a couple weeks ago, growing up in Jacksonville, if you remember, WGN, the Chicago channel, was a local channel in Jacksonville. So we would see Bulls games, all of the home games live, like during the week. So you got to see Mike for a long period of time, and just seeing some of the stuff that he did and seeing as he got older, how he transitioned to the post and how efficient he was shooting the fall away. And like, he made it cool to win. Like, I think he was the first player that made it cool to win. A lot of people may not disagree with this, but I think Mike is the reason why a lot of the younger guys kind of hop teams to win a championship, because it's cool to win. Like, I think Mike, I don't think he started it because you had Bill Russell and guys like that with the Celtics that was winning, Magic was winning. But Mike won 06, and I think for Kobe, it felt the same thing for Kobe. Kobe was like, in order for me to be considered to be good, I got to win. I think that started with Mike. Yeah. Like, I think the whole winning thing started with him. All of these guys could play. Like, Kobe could play. It's LeBron can play. The separation that I personally make with LeBron and Jordan is because I don't give guys credit for their size when it comes to basketball. So when people come to me about LeBron and say, oh, man, he's 6'8", I don't really give you credit for stuff that you don't have no control over. Like, you 6'8", that's good that you 6'8". It's special that you 6'8" and you 280 or whatever he is. But I don't give you credit for that. I'm giving you credit for basketball stuff. How well do you shoot it? How well do you defend? How skilled you are, and all that type of stuff. So for me, it's Mike for different reasons, as far as him setting the mold, the winning part of it, making it cool to play defense, winning Defensive Player of the Year multiple times, as he matured as a player, passing the ball a little bit more, getting other guys involved. I don't think you get LeBron saying, I'm going to get guys shots if he don't have a chance to watch Mike get Steve Kerr shots, get John Paxson shots, get BJ Armstrong shots. I don't know if you get LeBron doing that if he don't get a chance to watch Mike set that trend, if that makes sense. So nothing against LeBron. LeBron a great player, but for me, I got to go with Mike.
You add the other stuff to it, like, coming in, with Kobe, rest in peace, man. We miss Kobe, man. Kobe coming in and modeling almost his whole entire game after Mike. And then you got LeBron coming in, he got a variation of Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan coming in wearing the 2-3 and as a jersey, and getting a big shoe deal before he even, did a jump ball in the preseason. It's like all of them had like you said, a pattern to follow. He set a mold, and, there's still some things after he set the mold. Those players went on and accomplished great things, but they still haven't, overcome Mike's objectives. So it's kind of hard for us to title you GOAT if you haven't, if you pattern yourself after somebody and didn't surpass them. You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So good stuff, man. So we'll skip college and get into Jacksonville, man. That's kind of like probably what a lot of people want to hear is like other perspectives. haven't gotten a chance to hear from you. We've heard from a lot of people. Some people who are in the conversation for greatest all time have spoken out and given their opinions. You know, some of them people think it's themselves. Some people think, you know, they give credit to others. You know, what is your thought process on Duval's greatest player of all time at high school level?
For me, it's James. For me, it's James Collins. For me, and the reason being that it's James, his resume from top to bottom is impeccable to me. When you go averaging 40, 50 points in middle school to doing what you did in high school, you won Mr. Basketball in high school. You're the first Mr. Basketball we ever had. Your team win a state championship. You sign with Florida State. You go to Florida State. You achieve all ACC honors. You go to the NBA. You play overseas. Like, from a basketball standpoint, I usually want to talk about high school. Just the stuff that he did in high school. We keeping it at high school. I just think the things that he did in 3 years that other guys only had, I don't think guys realize that we had 4 years to try to do what he did in 3 years. And all of those guys before.
That's huge.
I don't think that like Stacey Pooh Sr. had a good high school career. Otis Smith had a good high school career. I don't think that it was the 3 years that James had. I don't think any of those guys scored 50 points as a 10th grader, their very first high school game. I don't think that the year that I played varsity in the 8th grade, James hit 55 on Lee. And I remember the article in the paper said Jackson's Collins drives for 55. Like, those things, like, hasn't been duplicated. Like, I don't think we've had a player since James to score 55 points. I don't know. I don't think it's, if it has, I don't know. I think we might have had a kid score 53 recently, the kid at Hilliard. But even with the kid at Hilliard doing that, you're not talking about he scored 55 as a senior, but he scored 50 as a 10th grader. And his team win a state championship. You know, I just think that from I've heard stories about guys from back in the day. You got Truck Robinson, you got Larry Axon that played at Stanton, you got what's my man name that played at Fletcher?
Ron Anthony.
Ron Anthony. I mean, you got countless. You got Ronnie Montgomery at Reball. You got Keith Showers at Reball. You got Vincent Robinson, Lemon at Reigns. I mean, you could call names. I could name drop all day from start to finish. And Antonio Lawrence. You know, I don't think that James' resume can be beat for the stuff that he did, and on top of that, his team winning. Like, I think that kind of like solidified. I think the state championship, okay, Coop was good. Coop was real good. No state championship. You know, I think that's kind of like when you start talking about body of work and accomplishment. And at the time, and everybody want to be honest, unless you just from Main Street, you from East Side, James, Mike Ross, Bilal. After that, it's not a lot of names that people can call off that Jackson team that unless you from Jackson, unless you actually played around that time. So it was pretty much James as far as, you know, when you go talk about these Reebok teams, those winning Reebok teams, you call it 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 names of those Reebok teams. But when they kind of go to Jackson, it's kind of like James, you know. So for me, right, I've thought about this. I racked my brain about this, trying to be, you know, rational about it and fair about it. But from what I saw, and I think this is what some of the younger guys got to understand, the older guys have seen more than some of the younger guys. So because I've seen more, I have more to compare you to. So it may be somebody listening to me right now from the 70s who may be like, man, you crazy. You know, you crazy. so-and-so better than James Collins. You know, you got people like Randy Jordan. You got Ronnie Weston. You got, I mean, some of the older cats could play. You know, they could actually play. But when from what I saw and from what I've heard and the research I've done, James is it for me. And I don't think what he's done has been duplicated. You know, I just don't think it's been duplicated. It had nothing to do with our relationship or that like that. I just think it hasn't been duplicated.
Hey, I got something funny going on right now, man. And I got to take a screenshot of it, man, in the comments. We got somebody in the comments on Facebook Live, man, ask you, no Kip Stone?
Kip Stone, no, listen, Kip Stone.
Hey, but hold on. Hold on, he say no Kip Stone. He passed away last year. And then like a couple of comments under that, Kip commented.
Nah, Kip didn't pass away. No, I'm gonna tell you why Kip came to mind. Kip came to mind because when I started thinking about guys that won a state championship, but you say Kip Stone, Tim Mason on that team too. Tim Mason on that Bulls team too. So it's like you got people that's with Tim that's gonna say, hey, you hollering about Kip, but what about Tim? I don't think nobody from Jackson is gonna say, what about me? Everybody from Jackson is like, hey, James, it is what it is. James, he did his thing. You know, I don't think it's too many people, and I don't think people saw it. You know, I don't think people saw it. When you have I could have stopped here. When you have a press conference, okay, think about this. I'm gonna put this in context for you. People having a press conference for a 13, 14-year-old and he ain't missing. We ain't talk about no missing child. We talk about a kid, talk about where he going to high school at. Okay, Now do that have anything to do with James? No, that don't have nothing to do with him. We had this press conference for him and how he reward us. His first game, he scored 50 points. That's how he reward us for 50. You got some high school teams who can't score 50 points as the team.
Right now.
So that's just me. Like I'm not against nobody else, who they think or whatever. But for me, you know, as a former high school basketball player, from top to bottom, player, rebounder, running the flow, he defended the rim for his team. He scored for his team.
Yeah.
He got his team a state championship. He was named the best player in the state. So he the first player from our city to win Mr. Basketball.
That's a precedent set, man. I see our special guest on, man. Check your inbox, man. Check your inbox. We want to get you on, man. Check your inbox. We'll definitely jump to the topic, man. Just check your inbox. So we'll hopefully our special guest can jump on, man. We'll move on until hopefully he can join us. So you had to talk about Mr. Basketball, perfect segue. You coached the kid Isaiah Adams, who two-time class player of the year, and also won Mr. Basketball, the second player in the city to reach that accomplishment. Talk about where you believe Isaiah belongs in the conversation of the greatest player of all time.
I think it's too early right now. Like we don't usually with guys like some time have to pass, but his resume from an individual standpoint, like outside of winning the state championship, like that's the only thing he hasn't done. Like we haven't, and I would ask other people this because I didn't, as his coach, I didn't want people to think that I was trying to be biased, but I would randomly ask, and I would ask older guys because they've seen more, and that's all I would ask. Have we ever had anything like this in Jacksonville? I remember asking Coach Doug White from Reigns. I said, Coach, have we have anything like him? Coach was like, I don't think we've had anything like him. I asked Coach Ronnie Weston. I was like, Ronnie, do you think we have anything? He was like, I don't think we've had anything like him. And it's just the thing when you start talking about, and this is what I try to get guys to understand. it's no slight to you as a player if guys are saying you're not the greatest or so and so. I think guys have to understand if we've seen you before, like it's not as impressive if we have seen you before. It's no slight to you either, but it's not as impressive. Like, case in point, Dorsett Watson stands out to me because I've never seen that before. I had never seen a 5'10" point guard who would back you down consistently and like get buckets consistently. Like, that was his MO, backing you down, shooting fadeaways, whatever the case may be, and was a pure point guard. Like that, we haven't had that since that. Like, we haven't had that since that. So when you start talking about guys like, and not to just, I'm not calling guys out, but when I remember when Derwin came around, I remember when Shaq came around, I remember when Reb came around. The way that they played, they were good, but we had Coop, we had James, we had Sean Platts, we had guys like that already. So it wasn't like we had Antonio Lawrence. So we had guys that was like 6'3", 6'4", 6'2", that was athletic, that could put. We had Gary Anderson. You had guys like, okay, yeah, you good, but you not nothing that we haven't seen. Like Will Holloman can shoot the skin off the ball. He can shoot it. But we have seen John Knox. We have seen Aaron Atkinson. So it's like, it's not saying that Will can't shoot, but we have seen other guys that can do this.
Right.
So it's not like
you get in line and you put those guys next to the guys that we've already seen, not in front of them.
Right. We're not saying that these guys can't do certain stuff. And I listen to a lot of the commentary about who's the best this and who's the best that. And and I think guys are taking the wrong point on it. Like, for me, this is just my personal opinion. I have a sense to gravitate towards something that we've never seen. We have never seen Sharon Dorsey. You haven't seen Sharon Dorsey since Sharon Dorsey.
Right.
Okay. If people don't know who Sharon Dorsey is, that's Big Red. That's Terry Parker's high school coach right now. We have not had a 6'6" guy, almost 300 pounds, that could dribble the ball, handle the ball, shoot jump hooks, run the floor, block shots, rebound. We haven't had that. Like, we have not had that since. So guys that have a tendency to stick out to me is guys that we have. I don't think we've had another Gary Anderson. I don't think we've had that. I do not think we have had another Gary Anderson. Now, do that mean that Gary is better than some of these other guys? I'm not saying that. I'm just saying it's certain guys that stick out to me because it was the first time we saw that, and we have not seen that since. Right.
Good stuff, man. So we wanted to get our special guest on, man. I don't see him on. We're supposed to have the people's champ, Jamon Gordon, on with us, man, for a special segment. So, Reb, if you're still watching, man, I sent the Zoom link to your inbox, man. Check it out. Try to get on if you're still on watching. We got a special segment for you, man, per request. So, point guard, from a point guard perspective, we nearing the end, guys. So we had y'all for over an hour, man. This is how we talk. We can talk basketball forever. You love the game. You love basketball. We can go history. We can go strategy. We can go times we play head to head. Toby and I actually played on the same team for a few games. We could talk for hours about stuff that we know about basketball. And if you love the game, you talk to anybody about basketball, 2 hours might not be long enough. So, so from a point guard perspective, man, position-wise, who are some of the best point guards you played against, and who would you consider if you had to make a top list of point guards of all time in the city of Jacksonville? I consider the point guard to be position. A lot of people do. It's obvious that it correlates basically to the quarterback position in football, extension of the coach on the floor. And, one of the reasons why I wanted to call it out, because you're a coach, you played point guard. Talk about, point guard play and who you think some of the best point guards are.
From a history standpoint, I think we start at the top with Ronnie Montgomery. Ronnie Montgomery played at Reebok. I think Ronnie maybe came out 83, 84. He was in the backcourt with Vernon Maxwell at Florida. They used to call him the M&M boys. I didn't necessarily see Ronnie play in high school. Ronnie was like a mentor of mine. He would come by the park. He would teach us stuff. He would hold free camps and stuff like that. I caught him towards the end of, him being an adult playing in men's leagues and stuff like that. And he was just special, man. Like all of those, that and one stuff, the no look passes, the double moves, triple moves. Like Ronnie was ahead of his time, man. For me, and I think a lot of other people in Jacksonville would agree, the best point guard that we ever had was Ronnie Montgomery from Reebok. From there, it's kind of like, it's just a toss-up. It's just who you like. For me, Dorsett is at the top of the list for obvious reasons. For my older cats, you got Hot Dog that played at Reebok, Gary Hubbard. You got Randy Jordan that played at Ed White. You got Shannon Mickens at Forest. You got Mark Felton at Paxon. Marcus Washington at Fletcher. One of my favorite guys, I feel like they don't get talked about enough, is Anthony Harris at Fletcher. Derek Willis at Fletcher. You got Javon Tribune that played at Reign, Show Dog. It's a lot of guys, man. It's too many guys, I think that could play. I mean, you had the young cat, you got TJ Bannister, you had Eric Payton at Reebok, you had Will Cummins that played at Providence. And once I start getting into these conversations, I try to get people to realize just how good our basketball was. Like if you rattle off all these names, if you could call off all these names, Mike that Reebok was a solid point guard. You could go on and on.
You're right.
You could just go on, and I think it's a testament. And I'm probably getting myself in trouble because somebody's like, man, you ain't call my name, but I think it's just a testament to how good our city is. Ryan Robinson that played at Orange Park. Ryan was a real good point guard. Ryan was tough, but it's a lot of people don't even know who Ryan is. They don't even know who Ryan Robinson is. But this is guys that, even before me, after me, that played that position that I could just sit and watch, and I think we all brought something different to the game from a point guard standpoint, as far as running the team, as far as getting guys involved, defending the ball, handling the ball, passing the ball. I just think it's a plethora of guys, man, that you can name, and I would hate to try to put a pecking order. The only thing that I would tell you that's solidified, Ronnie Montgomery is the best point guard we ever had. Everything after that, to me, is kind of like, you pick and choose. You pick and choose, who you like, or what style you like, or what you like or what you don't like.
Right. Do you feel like your name gets mentioned enough?
Honestly, no, because I don't think I'm not sure that everybody has a clear idea of the job description. So I think the people who played with me, because I used to pass on the ball all the time, but I think the position has changed. So now if you got somebody looking at TV and they're looking at a Kyrie Irving, or they're looking at a Kemba Walker, or they're looking at a guy like that, and then they think about me, it's not going to add up because that wasn't the job description when I had the job. When I had the job, the description was you get guys involved, you lead on and off the floor, you're an extension of the coach, you make sure certain things happen, you get on guys when they're not doing what they're supposed to do, you spearhead the defense. If something go wrong, it's your fault. That was the job description. If you scored, that was a bonus. I think now the position has changed, so there's not a lot of position. Like I was so much different. Like to give you an idea, when I was coming out of high school, my senior year, I was considered to be the best point guard. A few years later, TJ Bannister was considered to be the best point guard, and we were like completely different. Like I couldn't do that stuff that TJ could do with the ball. I couldn't do none of that stuff. Like TJ had it on the string. He couldn't really shoot it in high school, but he had it on the string, and he was quick, and he was fast, and he could defend. I couldn't really handle the ball like that, but it kind of started changing to how well you handle the ball versus how well you run a team. So it kind of started changing. So you take one guy from one decade who was the best, and you take another guy who's the best, and now the job description not the same.
That makes sense, man. That makes sense, and it makes it difficult for you to draw a correlation between the players when the criteria is a little different. No doubt about it. No doubt about it, man. Don't know if Rev's still on, man. Jump on if you can, man. But Rev had he hit me. He commented actually on one of the posts and wanted you to specifically talk about when you taught him to dribble. Now, for everybody who don't know, Jamon Gordon, Rev Gordon, is one of the greatest players to come through the city. He's known as the people's champ, just because of who he is in the community, man. One of the players beyond high school, great college career, great professional career. They call him one of the realest because, Rev can, still got his credibility. He can go back in the hood and post up and nobody won't bother, despite, what he got going on, man. So probably if not considered the greatest of all time as a player, he definitely gets the tag for most respect, for what he does for the city. But he specifically, out of respect for you and out of love for you, wanted you to tell a story about teaching him how to dribble the ball.
I remember when I met him. I had just got finished playing at JU, and we were playing pickup at the boys club. And it's not when I met him. I met him during that year. I think it might have been like his senior year of high school. So we were playing pickup at the boys club, and I remember making him turn because I saw he switch hands when he spin. So I remember making him turn, and then I picked him, and it just bothered him so bad. Like it bothered him so bad. And that's one thing I loved about him. Like it was like 2 games later, and he was like, I can't believe I let this dude steal a ball from me. Like it just bothered him that bad. And from that point on, like I wanted to start building a relationship with some of the younger guys. And once he signed with Virginia Tech, I had this thing to where I want guys from Jacksonville to be successful. Like I had already been through the college stuff, so I'm like, I don't want these guys to run into the same bumps that I ran into. If I can help them, I'll help them. So one of the things that was obviously, in my opinion, that was deficient about him was his ball handling. He was tough. Like he was just a tough. He didn't have a lot of skill in high school. He just was real, real tough. And he would dominate you just off straight toughness and just determination. And it didn't surprise me that he was going to the ACC, but I would be lying to you if I thought he was prepared to go to the ACC. And I don't think he really knew what to expect. I didn't play in the ACC, so I'm not sitting here saying I knew what to expect from the ACC, but I hadn't played it on a college level. And at the time, you got to think of what age I am at the time. I'm pretty young. I'm still comparing him to like me and stuff like that at the time. So I'm thinking he not going to be able to handle the ball in the ACC. Like his calling card gonna have to be defense. So in assessing his game, I felt like he was generic offensively. Like it was just generic. It was straight right, straight left. He'll blow by you. He can finish above the rim. It wasn't a lot of pace. It wasn't a lot of hesitation. It wasn't a lot of change direction. I felt like he wanted help with ball handling, and I was excited that you was gonna get him on here because I never shared this with him.
Yeah, so he trying to get on now, man. So we trying to get him. He messaged me, say he trying to get on. So hopefully he'll get on in a minute. So but keep going.
But he doesn't know that when we connected about ball handling, I never thought that would be his calling card. So I thought it would be defense. And because I thought it would be defense, I used the ball handling as a way to try to help him become better defensively. I never thought he would get the ball handling stuff because, like, this kid getting ready to go to college. He is what he is. Like, they know what he is. I'm like, the only way he survived, and it's the same thing I told you, Udonis. When he was with the Miami Heat, I was like, you got to be the guy, and I'm not going to hop on this, but I told you, Udonis, you got to be the guy when you go to the scores table, the crowd, like, scream. Like, you got to be like the fan guy, the dive on a loose ball, dive on the floor, take a charge guy. So I saw the same thing with Reb. I was like, you got to be a defensive guy. So what he thought we was working on ball handling, I was trying to get his ball handling a little bit more complicated so he could understand what could happen to him on defense.
I got you. So we got Reb on, man. I'm gonna add him now. Man, so he can have some commentary, have some stuff to say. Yo.
Hey man, you got to cut the light on.
What's good, man? We can't hear you. See if you can connect your audio. It says connecting. You okay?
Oh, I got you.
What's good, man?
What's up, man?
What's good, man? What up?
Not
What
much,
up?
not
Hey.
much, man.
Listen, I'm gonna back up a little bit. So you never knew, and this is interesting to me because we years down the road, and I told Courtney, I don't feel bad about this because you went on to make all this money and have a good career. But honestly speaking, when I was working with you when you were in high school, I never thought much of you as an offensive player as far as what your future may be.
Mm-hmm.
So when we were doing the ball handling stuff was for you to become a better defensive player. Because I felt like if we could get some sugar in his game, he would be more prepared to defend sugar in the ACC. Because I felt like in high school, you was real generic. Everything was straight left, straight right. And you was able to get it done because you were so tough and you were so athletic. But I honestly, like, this is how paranoid I used to be. I was like, he not finna go to school and tell somebody he been working with me on his ball handling and it don't come out right. Like, that's how paranoid I was. So what I felt like was, I said, you know what? In the ACC, if he could defend the wing, and I never told you this. I said, if he could defend the wing, he could be real good if he could defend the wing in the ACC. Me working with you on your ball handling was for me to instill in you to get an idea of what could happen. Because if you was going based off what you could do, you would be in for a lot of surprises. Now, having this conversation right now, it sounds like, oh, Toby, the reason why he went on to be that's not it. I'm not saying that. I'm saying I felt like if you was gonna become a better ball handler, it was gonna be more so from just your duration of college.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel good years later knowing that you don't go for hesitations. You don't go for hot head and shoulders because you got head and shoulders and you got hesitation in your game. So you
Yeah.
don't go for that. But when you
Yeah.
was in high school, you didn't have none of that in your game. So I was afraid they gonna put him on the floor because he could defend. But being in Jacksonville and what you got in your own game, I felt like was generic. So if you remember, the stuff that we did when we did do ball handling was a lot of combos and a lot of triple move stuff.
Right. Right.
Because I felt like when he go to the ACC, he finna run up against somebody who finna combo him, who finna triple move him, hezzo him, and then we go over to JU and we brought Kevin Shepard in, who was
Yeah, he
quick
was
and
killing it.
fast, right? But it was never about making you a better ball handler because I felt like it wasn't enough time.
Yeah. But it's crazy. It'd be crazy because I picked up on it so fast. And I remember I think I was going to the 11th grade. So that was a that was a big summer for me because, you know, Red had just left. So it was like I had to do more. I had to put the ball on the ground. And I still wasn't ready on the offense end when I got to college, but on the defense end, it wasn't harder than I thought it was going to be. Because I played in the Big East my freshman year. So I was more pounding and more defense, more, you know, I was guarding bigger, small forwards. When I got to the ACC, not saying it was easy, I just didn't really fear nobody after I ran into Ben Gordon. Like, when I tell people that, kind of laugh, like, I'm like, yeah, Chris Paul is Chris Paul over the NBA career. You know what I'm saying? He turned out to be who he was, but I ain't fear him like I fear Ben Gordon. Because now, when you got to guard somebody and they got weaknesses, I know what you can't do. You know what I'm saying? So what you can't do, I can just push you to that. Ben Gordon ain't really have no weakness, especially on the offense.
You know, Courtney, I say this while we got Rare Bone, because I think it's important that he hear this from me. There's a lot of conversation that's been going back and forth about eras and generations and what generation is better in the 90s. And I would say this as a 90s kid, and I love the 90s. I fight for the 90s. But this is what I'm most proud of, and I think this is what the older guys should be proud of. Their generation produced more pros. And at the end of the day, that's what we should all be happy about.
Yeah.
Jamon a pro, Shaq a pro, TJ a pro, Will Cummings a pro, Grayson Allen a pro, Pat Young a pro, Ladarius Wilson a pro. So it's like when you think about the era, we can sit back and say, "Oh man, we was tougher, we was better, we was this," but they produce more pros. So if the whole idea is for the next group to be better, we should be satisfied. Like we shouldn't be, in my opinion, we shouldn't be beefing about no list. And I feel like the work is done. If the guys come after me are pros.
And one of the things that we do, Toby, when you and I talk basketball, man, and it goes back to what you said earlier about where the city is, and then when you look at somebody like Reb and the rest of the guys who are pros, me being coaching outside of the city of Jacksonville, down here in Tampa, when I tell everybody where I'm from, the first thing that people talk about is toughness. They know when they're going to play against a Jacksonville team or Jacksonville players that they're going to be in for a dogfight. They ain't worried about the skill first. They know that they're getting kids that's up here and right here, they're going to get everything they got. So, you know, looking at the professionals and the guys who became pro, looking at people like Reb, man, you know, we always say when we talk about a kid, we talk about a player after us, we ask the question, could he play in the 90s? And that's, we definitely know, you know, when you watch Reb in high school, college, professionally, that the question is unequivocally, yes, he could have played in the 90s, no doubt about it.
And I think too, you know, what the younger guys need to understand is the older guys, it was a little tougher. Like, I remember, I told somebody the story. I remember when I heard about Duran. Around the time I heard about Durham, I was boycotting high school games. Like, I'm not going to no high school game because kids don't, the standard had changed. So it wasn't that Durham
Right.
couldn't play. I'm like, I had never seen Durham. They're like, man, you got to see this kid. You got to see this kid. You got to see this kid. So I told my homeboy, I said, if I can't tell who he is from warm-up, he trash. That's what I said. So we in the gym for like 10 minutes. I'm like, who is he? Like, I can't figure out who he is. Now, this is just me being young and naive. Okay, I see Derwin that night. He didn't really do too much. I saw him again. The next time I saw him, he had a couple bad possessions. He took his headband off and threw it in the bleachers. So after that game, I introduced myself to him and I talked to him. And I say, man, you know, you threw your headband off. I said, the headband ain't making you play bad. I like, the headband ain't got nothing to do with it. I like, if the headband making you play bad, you should have left it home. A week later, I see Derwin play against Jackson. He hit the game winner. I go up to him to congratulate him. When I congratulate him, I say, man, that's a good shot. His response was, I should have did something. I ain't do nothing all game. When he said that, it took me back because of what other people telling me, I'm thinking he think he can play.
Yeah.
He don't feel like that.
And
So I am judging the kid by other people's standards, and he being hard on himself. So it made me come down a little bit and be like, you know what? I'm listening to other people. It got me thinking that this kid walk around saying, I can really play. He don't really feel like that.
yeah.
So I'm like, here it is, just a kid. So I think that's what happens sometimes as adults. We see kids and we hear about kids, and we think that, oh, he think he better than what he really is. That kid ain't said nothing to nobody about nothing.
It be the fans hyping it up. It be the people hyping.
Right.
And like to piggyback on what you said about the next generation, see, Durham was the next generation after me. So for me to watch him, I'm in the 12th grade, he in the 10th. To watch him kill when I'm in college is like, all right, all of us played with each other. You know what I'm saying? So I remember being in the game. I could never, Derwin and Juwan is the only two people I played against in high school where I never could take it to that next level against. Like, I could never, like, see myself fouling them on a break or see myself really, like, you know, just going at like I go at anybody else because I looked at them like they was my brothers.
Right.
So me watching them, even though they was blowing, Derwin told us my last time I played Derwin at high school, I think Riley was, you know, we always beat him, and Riley was just selling now. He was like, oh, once Red leave, I never lose to you again. And I kind of like look back at him like, man, this nigga talking crazy. You know what I'm saying? Man, I went to college, man. Like he told him, he never lost to him again. Like he never lost to him again. Then, like with the errors thing, I was fortunately young and I seen the errors. Like I seen y'all. What I say about y'all had better teams than us. All the schools was good.
Right.
When I got to school, man, I tell everybody like, man, some of them teams ain't have a chance to beat us. Like it wasn't even close. And that's why the thing about Isaiah, I heard you talking about Isaiah when I was in the car. He got the stats, he got the awards, but if you really watch the city, they're gonna knock him for his error. But at the same time, you can't knock his awards. Because like as the years going on, most of the schools are getting terrible. The game's not, even in my years, I tell people my years, us playing Stanton was not even worth watching. But y'all playing Stanton, that was a good game. Y'all playing Terry Parker, that was a good game. Y'all playing Baker County was a good game. I was in school, it was range and rebound. And Wilson every once in a while. But the era, it wasn't really like that in my era. So when people go to talk about how good they was, I told them I averaged 22 points with no jump shot.
Right.
So that lets you know something's wrong. And I was a defender. So that just let me know that, like you said, you live out the city. I done been out the city long. Our kids are hurt by our mentality. We are defenders, and we play with heart. But you got to learn how to play offense.
Right.
You ain't going to no high major D1 college straight defender. It's not going to help you. It's not going to help you make no money. It's not going to help you. And I try to tell people that, hey, man, you got to let the kids score. You got to give them. That's the best thing I like about Toby. He give them freedom. He let them play. Because when you get to college, you ain't stopping. Yeah, you can get your kids lots.
But you know what, though? You know, the thing about that is, as far as the freedom part of it, like, it's just trust. Like, if you show me, you know, people see the game, but they don't see the practice. You know what I'm saying? So you show me, I sit and watch sometimes. Sometimes we put up the shoot machine and I just sit and watch. Like, kids think I be playing on my phone, but I just sit and watch. So if I see a kid ball going in, or we scrimmaging and his ball going in, or he's staying late, coming early, his ball going in, I don't really mind. The problem is in the game, it don't go in. It look like, oh, what you doing? But if ball go in practice, so, and the last thing you want, like, you don't want no kid. I remember this. I remember playing at JU, and I remember going back and looking at film, and every time I took a three, we had an assistant coach that would drop his head. And I remember it hurts you when you feel like somebody on your team don't believe in you.
They don't trust you.
Drop his head, like, and then if I hit, he'll be like, yeah. But I say I never want my kids to feel like that. Like, that was a bad feeling to feel like a guy on your team, a coach, they don't believe in you. So sometimes I probably go overboard with that with my kids because of that.
Yeah, and a lot of stuff with the city is I don't think. Go ahead.
Ruff, no, I was gonna tell Ruff. I don't know what he got next on the agenda.
No, man, we just talking, man.
I wanted to take a minute. And just name drop some guys, because I feel like it's some guys who never get mentioned. And it's not like I'm the Messiah or nothing like that. But I do want to acknowledge some guys that I feel like when people hear these names, they may be like, oh man, I forgot about him. And I ain't got no paper, I ain't got no script or nothing like that. These just guys that I remember competing against that I felt like was good for our city.
Yeah, let's do that, man. Let's do that, and then I want to get Rev to chime in on that same topic, man, because he played in a different era. So I want him to kind of talk about some people that he played against or played with that nobody talks about who should get some more notoriety. So go ahead, Frazier.
Okay, I'm gonna start with Bruce McCord, Cisco from Reigns.
Yeah,
a lot of people forget about Cisco. Cisco passed. God bless him. There he passed. But Cisco was a beast. Andre Schubert, Dookie Dre. Jackson.
Yeah, Duke.
A lot of people forget about Dre. Raymond Sykes from Jackson. Raymond went on to play at Clemson.
Jackson.
Playing overseas.
Yeah.
So to give you an idea, Raymond played in the ACC, played overseas. This is a guy we never talked about. We never talk about a guy who played in the ACC and played for money.
But I think Raymond, like, he supposed to play with me, and I played against him in college. I think he got better as he got older. For me, he supposed to dominate the city, and he did. That was my whole biggest part against Raymond. Like,
that could be true. I can see how you feel like that, but that's a guy that
he still had a great career. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Zimmy Daniels, for some of the 94. Zimmy Daniels, that was at Mandarin, and Terry Parker, DeAndre Williams, Raines and Wilson.
Yeah.
Shoot, man. Leon Stroy, Larry Richardson, that was at Orange Park. Mike Gibbs, that was at Clay. Juan Kiki Wiley.
Juan Wiley, baby.
Juan Kiki Wiley from Inglewood.
Get down.
From Inglewood. Terry Rayleigh from University Christian. Rep no Mouse, but a lot of people don't know.
Yeah, Mouse. Yeah, Mouse.
A lot of people don't know Jared William Mouse.
Jared William.
Even
Calvin.
Calvin Warner.
Yeah.
We just been some guys, man. Sterling Tisdale from Baker County.
They don't talk about Kenny Walker a lot either.
Kenny Walker from Wolfson. Yeah. It just like, and I'm name dropping primarily just for the sake of we had so many good players. Theo Anderson from Forest.
Yeah.
We had so many good players. Hawata Mills and Ed White. We had so many good players from the 90s, man. Ivan Gundle, TJ Archie, Tony Cummins, Ben Fleming. You know, all that
Yeah.
Reebok.
Ben don't get enough credit. Ben don't get enough credit.
It's so many guys. Tia Sullivan from Reigns. T went on to play at Lynn. T played at Lynn, then went on to play overseas. I mean, it's a lot of guys, man, over the years. So you hear these conversations, you like, man, it shouldn't be no anger. Because there's so many good guys. Like, we should be proud that our city produced.
It's that comparison. It's that comparison. Yeah. The comparison making people mad for no reason. The comparison thing will, get certain people in their feelings. When, for me, when they compare me, I just tell them, just remember I'm a defender. So before you compare everything, just remember that. Right. But I got guys in my era. I think Danny Bell don't get even. Danny Bell won Player of the Year over me my senior year. Like, people don't really understand. Like, I think he averaged 23 years in a row with red on the team. That's hard. Yeah. Then the next person, me personally, that I was scared to defend, Eric Payton. Nobody gives him his.
Listen, I was just going to say Eric Payton. Eric Payton.
Nobody give this man his respect. I'm telling you, I done been in some wars with Eric, man. See Eric go against some top players.
Eric Payton was something else, man. He was something else, man. Eric Payton was something else.
His
I'm going to tell you what, in y'all era, Charles Atacola.
But Charles, before me, I ain't get to see him because I think he ain't had the grades. My freshman 10th grade, yeah. Charles too. Charles.
Freddie Williams.
Yeah. Freddie had some good 3 years. I'm going to tell you another guy that slept on. The dude, Nigel, played point guard for Wilson.
Nigel Givens.
Listen, he one of the smartest point guards I ever played against. He was hurt. He got hurt in AAU because we had TJ and Eric. So it was kind of like, the coach going to always knock the nice guy. You know what I'm saying? They're going to always take the nice guy. His parents weren't going to complain about no minutes, but he's supposed to play way more. Like, way, way more. Then you got I'm trying to think. BG, me personally, if BG
Brian Green.
He focused more on one sport. If he focused more on basketball, he'd have been way better. But when you playing 3 sports, you take it. Then you got Will from Jackson too, because he's from my neighborhood. Will, around y'all age.
Will Thomas.
Will, I played against Will. Yeah, shoot that corner.
Now, that's another guy. That's another guy, Courtney, we talk about. We hadn't really had nothing like him. Will was like 5'8", catching lobs.
Yeah.
And could shoot the skin off of it.
Yeah, Will could shoot it.
Well, we haven't really had a guy like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, it could go on and on, man. I just think it's spanking for Jackson. It could kind of go on and on, man, with guys. I just think it's a testament to how good our city is, man. And we got a good city when it comes to basketball.
Our city gotta take advantage of our players. Like, it's a lot of knowledge. It's a lot of people that play basketball that you don't know. Like, some of the dudes don't come around. Sometimes the schools don't even acknowledge the players. But right now, we probably got more pros from Jacksonville in the city right now than they ever had. From multiple schools, not just like how everybody try to act like it's Range, Jackson, and Reebok. It's from everywhere.
Yeah.
But the coaches at these schools don't reach out to the players. Like, I talk to the players, like, we used to play at Jackson every summer. And I'm like, man, why you don't go back to your school, work out with your teammate? Oh, the coach don't really mess with me like that. The distance between players from schools is so bad that these kids, they never going to get a chance to see that many pros. We from Jacksonville. I don't care what level.
Right.
These coaches, you got to do a better job, and the players too, are going back to your school, working out with the players, talking to them, telling them what really matters, what college really like when you get there. You know what I'm saying? Like, for Toby, when I retired, I tried to holler at every coach. Hey, man, I'll work your guards out for free. Let me come up with Toby here, did it. The coach at the time of Reebok did, and of course Jackson, but so many coaches I was hearing like, oh, he might try to get him transferred to Jackson. It's bigger than the city. It's bigger than Jackson.
Right.
Why wouldn't I help Isaiah work on this game to get better when he go to college?
Right.
Why we so much fight each other so much that when it comes to basketball, we are nobody in the United States when it comes to basketball.
Right.
We got to help each other more. That's the same thing Toby helped me a long time ago. Toby ain't know me. Right. He just did it out of kindness of his heart, no matter how he felt, like what he was saying, but he did it. Right. He helped me way more than he knew. Because he really ain't tell you, he really helped because I robbed him one day in pickup. He was mad about that. That's the real story I want you to tell him. He wanted me to tell him. But yeah, just giving back, man, showing these kids different moves, showing them that you can be better on that court, man. Right now, these kids are way lazier than we was. Way lazier. But when you get somebody who's on the court that's still playing, they can relate to it. And I think that's my biggest thing. What's wrong with the city? We compete with each other too much instead of helping each other. When we supposed to have way more than what 5-6 guys we had in the NBA. We supposed to have way more than that if we would have helped each other.
That's good stuff, man. That's good stuff, man. And we appreciate you jumping on, man. And after Toby told the element of the story about teaching you how to dribble, how he was going to tell it outside of just going through the drills, I had to say, man, I need Reb on because I need him to hear it. I want him to respond to it because he told me he had never told you it before, man. So I appreciate you taking time to jump on with us and share your knowledge, share your experience. If you want to do something, man, and we can get on and talk, do an interview with you, man, and talk about what you got going on and your thought process, man, with basketball. That'll be great.
Okay, man. Just hit me up anytime.
Will do. Appreciate you, man.
Okay, bet. All right, y'all. Y'all be safe.
All right, buddy.
All right, man.
Yeah.
So we appreciate Reb for jumping on, man. That was our special guest, man. And, he definitely came on and provided what we thought he was going to provide, man. And listening to that story about, what Coach Frazier, teaching him how to dribble and what the goals were, man. So, Coach, my boy, we appreciate you, man.
Appreciate you, man. It's fun, man.
Yeah, it's definitely fun, man. You know how we do it. We can go on and on and on for hours, man, but we'll get in some trouble if we go on any further, man. So we'll go ahead and jump on off and handle business, man. So, we'll talk, man, and I appreciate you, man. We'll do it again for sure.
Okay, man. Appreciate you.
All right, buddy. Thanks. Appreciate everybody for listening, watching, supporting. And we're gonna do some more of these. I'm trying to line up a couple of more interviews, with some great players. We may do some football, man. I talked to one guy today that's considered the greatest of all time in football. So we may do, interview with him. And I'm trying to get another basketball goat on. I ain't nobody. I'm just, a guy who love to talk basketball, man. So I don't got no specific sign other than I'll let you.